Hello, everyone. Thank you all for coming. We're excited to have people in seats, so this is good. So again, my name is Tanya Womack, and of course, like Angel has said, I work at Care House of Oakland County. We are the Child Advocacy Center for the Oakland County area. So basically, we are a resource hub for children and families that have been through either child sexual abuse or severe physical abuse. So we're going to have to show you just our little commercial that we have for Care House.
Hi, I'm Blythe, CEO of Care House of Oakland County. Each year, we forensically interview 1,000 children believed to be victims of abuse. I'd like to tell you a little bit more about why they come to Care House and what we do to help. The children who come to Care House live throughout Oakland County, and sexual abuse knows no boundaries of race, ethnicity, gender, or socioeconomic status. When a child discloses that they've been abused, law enforcement and child protective services immediately get involved. They call us, and the child is able to come here to Care House for a forensic interview. Our forensic interviewers are highly trained and have hundreds, if not thousands, of interviews under their belts. They do this day in and day out, but it never gets any easier. Care House also offers therapy to both children and their families at no cost to them for as long as they need it. We have support groups that children and their parents can participate in as well. We strive to help victims of abuse through their healing journey here at Care House. And we also work diligently in the community to educate people how to recognize signs and symptoms and how to prevent abuse from ever happening. It's not the children that come here to Care House that keep me awake at night. It's the children that never disclose to anyone, that never tell anybody that they've been abused, the ones that never get the opportunity to walk through our doors. Those are the kids that keep me awake at night. Those are the kids that keep our team going each and every day. We can and we must do more to stop the epidemic of child abuse in Oakland County. The pain of abuse does not have to define a life.
Okay, so that was our CEO, Blythe, just going into a little bit more detail about the programs that we actually do provide to the community. So, of course, community outreach, which you are taking a part of right now, having the liberty and the privilege to be able to spread this awareness out in the community. Of course, our intervention, this is where the forensic interviews take place. So a child is able to share or disclose what has happened to them in a safe space, because everything at Care House is cultivated for that child. Treatment, which is our therapy department. We also have a Healthy Families program, which is home visitors going to the homes of families that have little ones 0 to 5 years old doing education. And then we also have a CASA program, which stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates, and that is hand in hand with the court system. So we actually are able to appoint an advocate to a child that is a part of the foster care system. Okay, so now to get into the objectives of tonight's workshop. So we are talking about body safety. So this is geared towards younger children, ages 3 to 9 years old, all talking about different ways of how to protect them and how to educate them on different topics. So we're going to get into consent and secrets versus surprises and body autonomy and what that looks like for each age range. We will talk about different resources and techniques to use to help educate your child to, again, prevent this abuse from happening. And then lastly, we will wrap up with how to respond if your child does disclose something. And what are some of those signs and symptoms to look out for? So what is a body safety training? So basically we are equipping you all with skills to be able to infiltrate this into your children to lessen the likelihood for abuse to take place. So some of the statistics, this is why this matters, okay? This is a part of why I do this work, what the numbers are looking like. So 1 in 10 children will be sexually abused before the age of 18. So just for Oakland County area itself, that'll be about 27,000 children that would endure some type of sexual abuse. Okay, that's 1 is too many, but 27,000 just for our community, our district, our county, that's too many children. And also 90% of children are abused by someone that they know. So how many of us were taught like the whole stranger danger thing growing up? Yeah, right. I know when I was in school, we had whole programs that came in that talked about stranger danger, which is not bad. You know, children still need to know about that, but we need to go beyond the stranger danger talk, right? So we need to talk about who actually has access to our children, because it will be someone that child usually will know. So this 90% actually breaks down to 60% being someone that the family knows, so whether it's like the neighbor or the coach or the tutor, and then 30% is actually someone from that family unit, so whether it's the immediate family or extended family that is possibly that perpetrator. Okay, so starting off with body autonomy. Okay, so body autonomy is the right for a person to govern what happens to their body without external influence or coercion. But how do we teach this to our children? So we always like to start off with teaching children the correct names of their body parts. This is so crucial. So how many of you maybe have heard different names that we call our body parts outside of penis and vagina? Everybody's hand should probably go up, right? If there's any brave soul out there, who wants to maybe give me an example of a name maybe you have heard? Cookie, right? What else? Wee wee. I heard yesterday TP. Yeah. PP, right? Muffin, right? All these different kinds of names that we call our private areas. And sometimes in our society, we get so uncomfortable as like parents and as caregivers of saying penis and vagina as if it's a bad word, when really it isn't. This is a safety protocol that we are giving to our children when we teach them the correct names. So what do you think can possibly happen if that child does choose to disclose to someone, but yet they don't have the terms penis or vagina to use? What do you think can happen? Yeah. It can be completely missed, right? And that person can have the greatest intention of like trying to help this child, but if they don't know what's talked about in the home, or if we're not giving them the correct names, that can be an issue, okay? So when we are telling them like, hey, this is your penis and this is your vagina, you're doing it as a safety protocol. And it shouldn't feel shameful or you shouldn't feel uncomfortable. And if you do, it's a work in progress, right? So this is why we also like to start this conversation early. Oftentimes I get the question as like, what's too early to start this conversation? Or maybe I'll start talking about this when they're like 6, 7 years old. No, you have to talk about this even like from the time that they are born, when they're infants. So of course they're not going to understand what we're telling them, but it's getting us comfortable as parents and caregivers as we are going through this process of teaching about their bodies. So even in infancy stage, as you are about to change the baby's diaper, you can start off with that. Like, okay, so I'm about to change your diaper. I know you don't know what I'm saying, but this is just me getting comfortable with this, right? So you can even start off like that. All right, and that's just us getting comfortable with it. Now, as they progress and they get older, of course, that conversation would change some, right? So just as you would teach like head, shoulders, knees and toes, we have all these songs to teach children different things about their bodies. We can even just implement penis and vagina in there, and it can just all be the same and not feeling too uncomfortable or ashamed about it. Also, it's important that we teach children that they are the boss of their bodies. Now, with this one, I think the person that usually has to struggle with this is usually the parent or the caregiver with letting that child like have control of their body. So this basically means that you're just empowering your child. You're letting them know like, hey, when it comes to your body, what you say goes. So if they don't want to give you a hug or they feel uncomfortable, like that should be okay, that they are the boss of their body. So when we actually go into schools and we're talking to like either the kindergartens or the first graders, and we actually have them scream this out loud, and they scream it to the top of their lungs like, I'm the boss of my body, and they feel that empowerment. So sometimes if they leave school and they go home and they tell you like, no, mom, I'm the boss of my body. Just know where that came from. But again, that's just an empowerment tool to let them know like, hey, I can say no if I feel uncomfortable with something. And when all of the parents and caregivers in that home is on the same page, that even strengthens that empowerment that the child now feels even more safe. Go back one. And then also empowerment over shame. So basically what this means is once we do start to teach our children the correct names of their body parts and we're having this conversation, you know, kids are hilarious. They talk about parents like embarrassing them, but I think a lot of times kids are embarrassing us too. So if they are maybe, for example, out in public at the grocery store and maybe a little boy say, hey mom, I have a penis. Of course you may turn red, but not shaming that. So if they say something like that out loud and we shame them like, no, shh, don't do that. That can instill fear in them. They can maybe feel like, oh, well, maybe penis is a bad word, right? So kind of going along with it, with that empowerment of just telling them like, yep, you have a penis and that's something we can talk about at home. It's completely normal. Not making them feel shameful for, again, the body parts that they have. It's completely normal. Okay, so we're going to show this short clip from an organization called Rape Victim Advocates. And basically this is going to be conversations that parents are having with their children about body autonomy and how it can look different across the board.
So I say, my vagina.
My rules.
My vagina.
My rules.
My vagina.
My rules.
Or my body.
My body.
My rules.
Okay, so I'm going to read you the types of touches on these cards, and then you're going to tell me who you would feel most comfortable with doing these to you.
You're embarrassed to say it?
Mm-hmm.
Touching your butt.
Like in what kind of way?
Slapping it.
She was probably 4, and we were at a photo shoot,
You know.
Like,
and she was hired to be the child, and then the doctor was had to do like a stomach examination.
I guess a parent then.
parent.
Yeah.
He went to go pull down her pants, and she goes, my vagina, my rules.
Touching your genitalia.
I guess at this age, no one.
No one. Good answer, I like that. No one ever. Even like when you get a girlfriend.
You don't want to be a grandparent?
No.
He looked at me, she's like, is it okay? And he explained that it was just a tiny bit below her belly button. He asked her if it was okay, and she said it was okay.
Yeah. Mother, I wish you never tickled me. Please. Duh.
So you know when you're getting tickled, and sometimes it feels really fun and exciting.
No!
Oh, she doubled up.
Do you know that feeling when it kind of feels too much and all of a sudden you're all done?
No!
Kind of like a, uh-oh.
No, please stop. Please, you're hurting me.
When you were able to say stop and move away from it, how did that make you feel?
I paused for a moment. I was like, I'm doing the uh-oh feeling.
Mm-hmm. At some point during the tickle, you didn't want to participate anymore, right? So how could you have let mommy know that you didn't want to participate anymore? When you have that feeling, what are you going to say?
Stop.
Yeah.
So does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Can we do another tickle fight?
Can I boop your nose?
Can I steal your necklace?
Can I pat your head and rub your tummy? Can I annihilate you?
Definitely not.
There are 6 of you, so we're going to have to figure out where.
Yes,
Hi,
it is.
camera.
So why do the 3 of you think that it's important to ask before we touch somebody?
Because they might not want you to touch them. Their personal space bubble can get bigger or smaller.
Do you like hugs when you're sad?
Depends on the level of sadness.
So sometimes I really like hugs when I'm sad, and I usually assume other people want hugs if they're sad. So if I see you crying, it's probably not a good idea for me to just walk up and hug you, even though that's what I would want if I was sad, right? Because that doesn't always work. Does that make sense?
Group hug?
To forward on, another important conversation that we need to have with our children is about consent. okay? Of course, at a younger age, consent looks very different from when they are in their teenage years, of course. But consent is basically the basis of where we need to start with children, okay? And a lot of that can be just boundaries. What does that look like? So consent is the approval or the agreement with what is done or suggested by another person. So how do you go about teaching consent to your child? So one, starting off with boundaries. So do children know boundaries at all? No, not at all. So this is a consistent conversation that we have to have with our kids about boundaries. So that means stepping into someone else's circle or bubble, or someone coming into their circle or bubble and letting them know what to do in those situations if they feel uncomfortable. Let them know how to speak up or how to speak out. Sometimes even teaching them about body language, right? Sometimes it may be hard for a person to outwardly say like, no, I don't want this, or you're too close to me, type of thing. So even teaching them to look at body language and facial expressions if someone feels uncomfortable with something. It's important that we teach them to always ask before touching, always ask before we do these things. Even when it's pertaining to maybe your child coming up to you and like just hugging you and grabbing you. We can always use these opportunities as teaching opportunities, right? So of course you can say, oh, you know what, I would love a hug right now, but can you ask me first? So when we're doing that, we're stopping, we're having a little education moment. Now that child will start to realize, like, okay, before I touch somebody or before I give this affection, that I need to ask first. That should always be the basis, ask first. It's always okay to say no. Children do not have a problem with saying no a lot of the times. That may be their first word that they may say. But again, they do not have a problem saying no. I think where the problem may lie is the support that they may have from their parents or caregivers. So I'll just give you an example, like if it is a family gathering, it's about to be Thanksgiving, right? Families are going to be together. So if your child walks into the family home and they see their grandmother and their grandmother wants a kiss and a hug and they say, no, thank you. Is that frowned upon sometimes in families? Yeah, especially dealing with different generations and things like that, right? So it's important for us to be supportive in those situations. It may be a little bit uncomfortable, but when your child sees that you stand up for them in that situation, instead of forcing them to hug grandma when they don't want to, hey, what about you and grandma make up a high five? Or how about you and grandma make up a little dance when you see each other, right? So now they're not forced to give this outwardly affection of a hug or a kiss or something like that, but it's something still cool that they can do and they can still feel that connection with their loved ones. So we never want to force any type of physical affection, again, especially if they feel uncomfortable with it. So if we instill that in them now as they grow up and they get into their teenage years and they start to have different types of relationships, like romantic relationships, they would have that basis of knowing like, I can say no and that would be okay. I don't have to be forced to do anything. A person should be able to hear and understand my no. Okay, so that's what we need to teach our children. Also, no convincing or coercion. Okay, so oftentimes if it may be like those hard mornings where we have to hurry up and get out the house and we have to put on shoes and put on coats and we're rushing and the kid just stops and just sits in the middle of the floor, but you have to be to work on time. Instead of saying, I'll let you have this bag of chips if you get in the car, or I'll let you have the supper, you put your shoes on really quick. That's that coercion, that's that bribery, and we don't want to correlate that to any type of affection or anything like that either, okay? So we have to steer away from the convincing or the coercion. Sometimes we just have to take a minute. If we may be a couple minutes late, okay, it's not the end of the world, and use these opportunities as a teaching moment. Yes, so we don't want to coerce our children because that's how a lot of sexual assaults and sexual harassments take place. It comes through coercion. So in the beginning, it may sound really good. So let's say if they're in their teenage years, they're going to middle school, high school, and this person that maybe wants to do something with them says, but you love me. We did this before. It's not that big of a deal. Stop acting like a baby. Like all those little types of like statements, those coercive statements, sometimes it may sound good, like, well, I do love them, so maybe I should do this. So we never want to try to trick them or bribe them into anything that they do not want to do or not ready for, especially if it's like a relationship type of situation. Okay, this one's going to play. You may have to like go over to the other screen. There we go. So this video that we're going to show, this is what we show kids when we go into schools, when we're working with kindergarten, first grade, second grade. We show this video of consent for kids. So it's kid friendly. It's a cartoon. Usually when we play this, they get really excited, I think because it's a cartoon. It's really cute. Oftentimes they ask us to play it multiple times. So this is like a oldie but a goodie.
Consent for kids. This is you. Okay, it doesn't look exactly like you, but let's say it's you. This is your body, and you get to decide what you do with your body. No one else is entitled to tell you what to do with your body. Not your friends, not strangers, not adults you know. No one is entitled to decide what you do with your body, except you. That's called bodily autonomy, by the way. And that's what consent is all about. Everyone is different. Some people love to hug, and some people hate hugs. And each person gets to decide what they're comfortable with. Can a hug-loving person just start hugging someone at random? Nope. They need consent. How do people know if they have consent? They ask. Would you like a hug?
Yes, I would. Can I hold your hand?
I'd rather not.
Okay.
If a person doesn't say yes...
Can I hug you?
Then they haven't given their consent. It's really pretty simple. Ask for consent, listen to the answer. By the way, if a person bribes someone or threatens someone to say yes, that's not consent. Sometimes adults will try to tell a kid what to do with their body.
Go kiss Aunt Doris goodbye.
But the kid still gets to decide. No thanks, that makes me uncomfortable. I'll just wave goodbye. Some things kids can't consent to. They can't enter into legal contracts. They can't vote. And they can't consent to sexual stuff, 'cause they're kids. So if an adult does something that kids can't consent to, that's not okay. The adult is wrong, and it's not the kid's fault. And that's when it's most important to tell a trusted adult, like a teacher. Why? Because it's your body, and no one else is entitled to tell you what to do with it. Practice consent.
So what do you all think about that? Is it cute? Yeah, it gets the point across. It makes it really simple for kids to understand what consent is. And also along with that, this is like a consistent conversation that you're going to have. So it's not just when they're 5, I'll talk about consent. When they're turn 16, then I'll talk about the other type of consent. This is something that's a continuous conversation that we have to instill in our kids, or that we have to have with our children. It has to be repetitive. Like, that's how children learn. They have to hear it multiple times. So moving on to safety rules. So when it comes to safety rules, we will usually make safety rules for any and everything. Rules keep us safe, right? So as we were making safety rules about like crossing the street or about wearing our seatbelt in the car, all of those are safety rules that children know. But when it comes to their bodies, we also have to make safety rules for their bodies as well. So some important things to maybe point out to you, or actually for you to like tell your children, that these are also safety rules. So outside of like not using a knife by yourself and not running with scissors, but also it's important to know that no one should touch your private body parts, okay? No one should show you their body parts or ask you to show you theirs, right? or for you to show them your body parts. Never touch someone else's body parts. Or no one should ever try to make you touch their body parts. No one should ask for you to like take pictures inappropriately without your clothes on or clothes off. And no one should show you these type of explicit images or videos. So a lot of times when it comes to sexual abuse, you can go back. When it comes to sexual abuse, oftentimes we look for the physical things, right? That's the first thing that people look to. Have you been molested? Have you been touched inappropriately? Right? Or has something else happened? Was it penetration? What happened? But sometimes we gloss over or glance over other types of sexual abuse, which is like that exposure to pornography or exposure to explicit pictures or videos or anything like that. So we need to take that part as seriously just as we would if someone were to touch our child inappropriately. Okay, so this video is from a resource called Second Step, and they have a lot of good resources for children to use when you're trying to teach them about safety rules. So we'll just play a real, just quick snippet of this because these videos are very catchy. It will get stuck in your head. But the kids like it. They get up and they dance around to them. But these are just things that you can implement as you are having this conversation with your children.
There are 8. These things you never do. 8. Use them all, they're tried and true. There are 8. These things you never do. 8. Use them all, they're tried and true. The first thing you do, now never skip this rule. Always ask a grown-up first to make sure things are cool. Your grown-ups will protect you and make sure things are good. They're there for you to keep you safe. Understood? 1. Never, touch a gun. 2. Never, no way. Play with fire. 3. Never, go on wheels without a helmet. 4. Never dive right in. Ask before you get wet.
These rules can keep you safe.
There are 8. These things you never do. 8. Use them all, they're tried and true. There are 8. These things you never do. 8. Use them all, they're tried and true.
All right, but what about sharp tools or petting dogs?
Number 5. Never. Use sharp tools alone. Number 6.
Never pet a dog
without asking your grown-up. 7.
Check for traffic.
Both ways before you cross the street. 8.
Never ride in cars
unless you're buckled up. All nice and neat. There are 8. These things you never do. 8. Use them all, they're tried and true. There are 8. These things you never do. 8. Use them all, they're tried and true.
Okay, so you get the point, right? It can get stuck in your head. But as they go along, they're teaching about like regular safety rules, but then towards the end, they talk about safety rules for your body, okay? And again, this is something that you can implement if you're having like maybe a hard time or you're uncomfortable with something. You can turn this on, you can start to dance around, you can tell the kids like to listen to the words, and this can help you guide the conversation with your children. Also, when it comes to teaching children about their body and body safety, just reiterating the fact that it's a consistent conversation. So even with like my little ones, I have 3 littles, 7, 4, and 1 years old, and my oldest 2 are girls. So the conversations that I'm having with them consistently are like about your bodies and what do you do? What would you do if maybe someone touched you inappropriately and you didn't like it? And then we will talk about it. We will talk it out, right? Even though they're 7 and 4 years old, we need to have that conversation now. And this will happen at random times. It could be at bath time or after I pick them up from school. We're just driving in the car and I'll say like, hey, what would you do in this situation? Or did you feel okay over there? Did you feel uncomfortable at all? Right? And we will have that conversation because I want them to know that I'm always a safe person to come to if anything were to happen. So it's good to build that relationship that way with your children. So if they were to disclose or need to say something made them uncomfortable, you will always be their go-to person first, right? But we're going to talk about our safety network as well. So secrets versus surprises. This is something important for adults to know as well. every adult should know that it's very inappropriate if you tell a child to keep a secret, especially if it's pertaining to something that has happened to their body, okay? So this, again, telling the difference between the two. So if it's a surprise, that means that, you know, everyone's going to find out about it, right? So if it's a surprise birthday party that we're doing for mom, like we want to just have it a surprise. We don't want to ruin the surprise, but eventually everyone's going to know about it. But if it's a secret, if someone ever told you, this is just our little game, this is just our little secret, and it has to do something that happened to their body, then they should know right away, like, okay, this doesn't feel right. My mom or my parent or my guardian, my grandma, whoever that adult may be, maybe have told me that I should never keep secrets, right? Or they touched someone inappropriately, and now this is our little game, but we don't want anyone to know, because if we tell someone, you may get in trouble. Or if you tell someone, this is gonna break up the family. And now this is how they maintain control over that young person, okay? With giving them those type of thoughts or that manipulation. So to try to reframe that or combat that is to always come that education from the parent or caregiver. It's not okay if someone tells you to keep it secret, especially if it pertains to your body. That's something that you should tell mom and dad right away. If mom and dad's not around, then who else can you go to? And then you start to have that conversation about the safety network. So our next video that we're going to show, we're going to have a little discussion about this after this one, because it's very intriguing about the responses that the children give, okay?
If someone touches you, they say, keep it a secret, little girl. Are you going to keep it a secret?
No.
And why not?
Because I don't like people touching me, and people touching people is wrong.
Say secret or?
No secret.
Very good. Should it be kept a secret if someone kisses your cheek, or not a secret? If someone pulls your hair, should that be kept a secret, or is that not a secret?
No.
If they say, keep this a secret.
I think it should be a secret because it's going to be spreaded around.
And what do you think, Shindell?
I think it should not be a secret because it hurts.
She just tell you a secret? What was it?
If someone touches your private parts and they say, keep this a secret, do not tell anyone. If someone touched your private parts, you would keep it a secret, Shindell?
Yep.
Why?
Because I don't want anybody knowing that touched my whatever.
So let's say it was someone that you knew, but you know they shouldn't touch you in that way. And they do touch your privates. You would not tell anyone when they say, don't tell anybody, keep this a secret, this is just between me and you. Ooh.
Secret.
Ooh, that's scary. Okay.
Is it a good secret or bad secret? Bad secret? What was it?
You're saying you would keep it a secret because you don't want anybody to know.
Yes.
Okay, tell me more about that. Why wouldn't you want anybody to know?
Because I just don't want this to spread, because I don't want anybody getting in trouble. I don't want anybody going to the police. I just don't.
But how would that make you feel if someone touched your privates and they weren't supposed to?
I would feel weird.
You would feel weird. And is it right for you to feel weird?
No.
Do you know that it's not a good thing?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, what do you think, Shindell? Why wouldn't you want to tell anybody?
I think I'll tell somebody.
Any touch where someone says, keep it a secret, is not good. It should never be kept a secret, because if it's a safe touch that respects your body, there's no reason for it to be kept inside. And do you know who you can tell when somebody's giving you a bad touch that shouldn't be a secret?
I'm gonna guess you're safe adults.
Why is it important that you have 5 safe adults?
Me, your dad, T.
Because they help me when anybody is bad or something's going wrong.
You can tell your teacher. Who are your teachers?
Miss Pam and Miss Papella and Miss Kelly.
This is a doctor, so if you're at the doctor's and you need to tell them, that's a really good, safe person to tell.
Jay?
Why do you need 5?
Because if I'm somewhere different, there's different people there I can know to keep me safe.
If you have to, keep telling people until someone believes you. So do you think it's important to keep telling?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So who's someone you could trust and tell?
I could trust you.
Yeah.
You.
So if someone touches you and they tell you it's a secret, are you going to come and tell me?
Yeah.
You promise?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay, so what did you all think about that clip? Hard to watch. What else? Not surprising. Anyone else? Any thoughts?
Adults are smart and they know how to groom.
Yes. Yeah.
And their, children's brains aren't developed. They don't know how to process it.
Exactly.
Even more reason why we got to band together.
Yes. And I think a lot of times, like as parents and caregivers, like if we are having these conversations with our children, we kind of think about it in a way of, oh, my kid, they for sure would tell me. Like I know for sure they wouldn't keep this a secret from me. And just as you've seen like in this clip with this mom who clearly has had like these conversations with her child, who was completely and utterly surprised by that response, right? But just listening to how that child processed why she wouldn't tell. Like she wouldn't tell because she wouldn't want to get anyone in trouble and all the things that would happen after she told. But we have to always make that child feel comfortable enough to know like something like that is never your fault. It's never your fault if something like that were to happen. Again, this is why I always say on a consistent basis, we have to always have these conversations. This is not just a one and done thing, but from the time that they're little to the time that they are in their teenage years, we have to talk about these things. Moving on to the 3 R's of safety. So we have recognize, report, and refuse, or recognize, refuse, and report. So questions for you to ask in different situations is 1, to recognize the situation. These are things that are techniques that we should be able to teach our child, okay? So, and again, sometimes it may be hard for a child to recognize if they're in an unsafe situation. They may not know right offhand because, like we just talked about in the beginning, majority of the time, if someone is abusing them, it's done by someone that they know. So it may be hard for them to guesstimate or realize if they're in an unsafe situation, but that is a question to ask. Like, is this safe? Does this break a safety rule for my body, right? So if it checks off some of those questions, then they maybe should have a red flag as to, okay, maybe this is something that I need to go and report or tell someone. Refuse. What are different ways that a child can refuse something? So sometimes it may be hard for them to just say, no, I don't want this to happen. No, stop it. It may be hard for them to say that, right? And especially as they progress in age, think of different creative ways for this child to say no. I always say, my kids, they can use me as a scapegoat. Like, nope, my mom said, nope, I can't do it. Nope, my mom said I can't do something like this. Or, of course, as they get into their teenage years, for them to send like that certain emoji that you know right offhand. If they send this emoji, then something has happened. I need to go get them and no questions asked. No one's getting in trouble. We're just going to talk this out type of thing. So they need to know that they are safe to refuse and also how to do that. Think of outside ways of doing that. Lastly, report. How does your child report something? Who do they go to? Who do they tell? If you're not around, who else can they approach, right? In different situations, in different environments, they should be able to have maybe a couple of people that they can go to. And again, that's a conversation that you can have using this worksheet. You can go to the next one. Using this worksheet, okay, safety network. So usually when we go into schools and we're talking to the kids, towards the end, we'll have them put their hand up, right? And I'll say, okay, so we're going to talk about our safety network. So in our safety network or safety circle, these are the people that should be keeping us safe or that we can go to for help. So let's start to name some people. So if you are at home, who do you go to for help? And they all start answering the questions. Well, what about if you're at school and something happens and you need help? Then who do you go to, right? Well, what if you're out and about somewhere? What if you're at Target? Every kid's favorite store is Target. Like, what if you're at Target? Then what? Like, what if you get lost or pulled away from your mom or dad, or they walk away for some situation? Then how do you go for help? And they say, find somebody with a red shirt. So they know what a Target employee looks like. But, we have to talk about those situations because you never know what possibly can happen. And it's always good to be preventive, right? We have to have that prevention. We have to talk about it ahead of time. Just in case something happens, they should have a plan. And of course, this will look different for everyone. Sometimes, depending on that child's family or their social support or lack of social support, they may not have a whole 5-hand that they can fill up. Maybe they can only have 2 people. They may only have 1 extra person outside of you, right? And I think it's also important to even have that conversation with the person that they choose. So if they say like, I can go to my aunt if I needed something, or if I needed to have a conversation, or if I feel unsafe and mom's not there or dad's not there, I know I can go to my aunt. So I think it would be okay to go to aunt and say like, hey, we're talking about this in our home, and they did say that you were a safe person, so I'm just letting you know it's okay if they talk to you about certain things, but also knowing like I'm still a parent, I still need to know what's going on too, okay? Okay, responding to disclosures. So if disclosures were to happen, it's important that us as parents and caregivers are prepared for that. So oftentimes, of course, if it's our child that has gone through something and now they're opening up and they're telling us what's happening, offhand we may have a really erratic disposition. We may, of course, be angry. We may cry and be frantic, but it's really important that we try to stay as calm as possible, because we don't want to frighten the kid. We don't want that kid to believe that what they did was wrong just because how we are reacting to it. So we have to try to stay as calm as possible, all right? Also, leading with, I believe you. Sometimes people will put the perception onto kids, like kids make stuff up, like, nope, there's no way that this is true, and they say all types of things. And that can put fear into that child, and they may not ever tell anyone else until they're into their adult years, just from how that first person they chose to disclose to reacted. So even if we lead with, okay, let's talk about this. I believe you, right? It's not your fault. So that can do a lot. So again, reminding them that it's not their fault. And then also for you to go and report it. Go and report it to the right authorities, right? Do you need to make a police report? Is there some type of CPS report that needs to be made? And for that, usually that's how Care House works. So a police report is made about the incident, or a CPS report is made about the incident, and then that child will get a referral to come to Care House if it deals with sexual abuse and or severe physical abuse. So knowing the right places to go after. And then just knowing that once or if something like that were to happen, that child does need some extra help, okay? It can't just be a conversation like, okay, I believe you, we talked about it, okay, now life goes on. No, trauma has happened to that child, right? And people deal with trauma in a lot of different ways. Now, if that trauma has happened and no one really talks to that child, or that child doesn't get the correct help they need, it can lead to a lot of different outcomes. It can lead to a lot of different ways that they are expressing like, hey, this happened, I need help, right? And they may look at a child like, oh, they're just rambunctious, or they're crazy, or they can't sit still. No, something has happened. We have to take a trauma-informed approach and start to ask different questions. What has happened to my child? Or what is going on? So that kind of leads into, yeah, I'm sorry.
So when you said to you talk about it, what do you talk about? Do you ask questions? Do you ask them what happened? Or do you ask them when, where, why, how? Or do you what do you?
So.
What's the process of talking about it?
So in talking about it, I will always say that it's okay to ask open-ended questions, because we want the conversation to be guided by that child. So if they say hey, this person that I'm with all the time, they hurt me, and then you're like, did Johnny hurt you? I knew it was Johnny. Johnny was a bad person. We don't want to come off that way, right? So just saying okay, tell me about it. Can you tell me what happened? Okay, well, what happened next? Well, when did this happen? Do you want to tell me how you felt when that happened? Do you want to tell me what you did after that happened? So kind of guiding the conversation in that way, where you're asking them open-ended questions for them to actually say themselves what is going on or what has happened. And also within those disclosures, if they were to happen, it may be bounds of silence, right? And us as like parents and caregivers, what happens if silence occurs and it's too long? Yeah, we start talking, right? We start talking like, okay, tell me more, what happened? Come on, we gotta get this out, what's going on? But if it's a child that has experienced something like that, they might not fully understand what has happened to them. So it may take them time to process. So they may be silent. That may be them processing what to say next or how to say it next. I think one more thing that I will put in there is also replicating whatever language that they use. So us as adults, we know the language, we know the lingo, we know the terms majority of the time. So if they say like, you know, this person touched my vagina, and then you're like, oh, you were molested. That's what that is. You were molested. That kid probably doesn't know that term, right? And now they're like, what? And get like really frazzled, right? So we want to reflect whatever language that they are using as well.
But also, they have professional forensic interviews.
Yes.
Right? So I think a big misconception and something that
is for us to
parents
investigate.
And adults do that we don't realize is that we're doing harm by asking questions. Leave that to the professionals, because then the bad guy, you're going to screw up the investigation. The bad guy's still out there, going to repeat it, or bad girl is going to go out and repeat it. So basically, it's like, when did this happen, and where did this happen?
So you can make that report.
Yep. So that if it happened at grandma's in Dearborn, you call the Dearborn police. If it happened at home in Bloomfield, you call the Bloomfield police. But the more questions you ask, I feel like that child now has to tell the story multiple times, and more than likely, someone's going to mess up the investigation because we're not trained professionals for that.
Yeah. Yep.
Sorry.
No. You're right. And I think I think that part is really hard or difficult for parents because their intent is really good. Like you want to know, you want to help, you want to be there, and that is absolutely right. So kind of maybe scaling it down just a little bit, but I think as a parent, you may ask certain questions. So just being mindful of that. So that's why I go back. You can go back to the last slide really quickly. Knowing like where to report it, like you said. Knowing what's the next steps after this. Because of course you're not going to have all the answers for that, and it's okay to let your child know that you don't have the answers for this, but I'm going to help us figure this out. Right? So now you start to do your research. What are the resources in the community? Where do I go? Who do I contact? Was there another? Yes.
Yeah, I just heard some incident on the 7th grade. So the girl reported to the school officials what happened. The first response from the official is, "Are you sure it's not here?" You know, I don't know what's the follow-up story, but if I was the parent, what should I do with this kind of response from school? The girl was bawling.
So a lot of professionals that work with children, a lot of us, we still need a lot of training and a lot of, especially when it comes to mandated reporting, like how to respond to that. Because in Michigan, there are certain occupations that are bound by law to report child abuse and neglect. And oftentimes, if it's someone that's working in the youth serving organization or a facility like a school, they may not know how to respond to that. So asking the right questions from the beginning does go a long way. So coming off like that, like, are you sure? I would consider that victim blaming. So I would just ask them, okay, so what happened? When did it happen? Okay, so let me take this to the next step of what I need to do.
Yeah, so as a parent, if I learn the school responds to the kids this way, as a parent, what should I do?
I think that you can go to the school, yeah. Yeah, you can report it. I think you can make a complaint with the school or whatever that you need to do to make sure that the people that are working with the kids have the type of training that they need to respond to these types of situations. Yeah.
I mean, the thing you want to remember is we're not investigators, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anyone can report it to either Child Protective Services or the police, right?
Is this kind of training that administration has, do you know? Like, does Bloomfield require your teachers or administration
all teachers are required to have mandated reporting.
If they get it.
I don't know if the district does that. I'm assuming they do, whether it's with a video or in person.
Yeah.
I can't speak. I'm not a representative of Bluefield. I'm a parent, so I'm just going to stick to that lane. But I'll find out for you.
Well, no, I just know we're on PTOC. I was just curious.
Yeah, no,
that
we can
seems
definitely
like
ask.
something that if it's not happening, it should.
Go into great detail of how to do it, what to do, what you're responding. Yeah, if they see something.
Not investigators. Let the investigators
Right.
investigate. Any damn body can report.
Mhm.
Right?
So,
Anybody.
yeah.
And it's confidential. So if you call on your neighbor because you see him outside whipping their kids with a stick, that's
You can do it anonymously.
You report it. Don't go home. Don't go to the school and say, "Hey, administration, I looked out my window and I saw someone beating their kid." Call them. What? You call. You saw it. You report. Right? So when we talk about being a village, and everybody's in charge to keep our kids safe. Call. That's what we do to keep our kids safe.
So my son had like a physical injury that happened at school, and it seemed like the school setting wasn't just because of like the environment that can sometimes exist where school or what have you might be on the defensive. They weren't sharing a lot of information about whatever happened. Do you have any thoughts in terms of how to get appropriate information to determine if it should be escalated? I know in this setting when we're talking about bodily rights and sexual type things, that's one thing. But I mean, I've seen this with physical altercations. What do you think is the best way to get information before just escalating immediately to the police?
You may not get that information because of federal privacy laws.
Yeah.
And that's not anything that the district can do. It's FERPA. That's what that is. It's what? FERPA. FERPA. It stands for something, but they're federal privacy laws.
I guess what I'm saying is like there was a physical situation,
Right.
got no information.
And you may not.
And it's it feels like it's very similar to what could happen in a sexual predatory thing. So any suggestions on how, I'm not saying like that incident was, but it just seems like the tone is always to be on the defensive and not share information from a school facility. Like,
You can file your own police report.
okay.
And then that's
Because we file a report doesn't mean that's going to happen. It just means someone's going to investigate.
We'll get that information for you. But again, we have an advantage of having professional investigators, right? Like parents should be parents, investigators should be professional investigators, right? It's kind of hard and probably not a good idea for those wires to get crossed. And again, particularly with sex abuse, we can screw up a really important investigation because predators don't offend just once.
No.
Ever. So, sorry.
No.
What about like confronting the predator? Like, what if it's like your kid says, the next door neighbor.
As much, I know it would definitely be hard for a parent, but I would try to go to the authorities first to say that this has happened. Because if you go and confront someone, you don't know what possibly could transpire from that. If it's like some type of physical altercation, it can be a whole snowball effect, right? So I would just gather the information and report it, and then let them do that part of the investigation.
They could use it against you too.
Yes, that's what I'm like, refrain from, we don't want to, even though within us as a parent and caregiver, we want to go and point fingers and get in someone's face and like, because we're angry, this is our child, but that can do a lot of damage on the back end if we want to possibly get this person put away or some type of justice to happen.
What about with like younger kids, like under 5? Like when you're talking like a 3 or 4-year-old.
When I'm talking.
So young that like you don't know. Like you don't know what's real and not real with like a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old. Like our 4-year-old told us there's like dinosaurs in the attic, and we very well know dinosaurs don't exist. I'm just saying, like, what do you do when it's like such a young kid and you don't know
I would say this. So I'll give you an example. So that situation happened to me. My little one, my middle child, she's in daycare. And it's a really small, like, home private daycare. And she came home one night and she said that so-and-so touched my body. And the work that I'm doing, I'm like, what? Wait, what? So it was maybe like 10 o'clock at night, but I know her teacher, and I called her teacher and I asked about that. But in school, they were learning not to touch someone's body. So not necessarily their private areas. So what had happened, the little girl at the school had like touched my daughter's back or arm or something like that, and she just referred to it as my body, and my brain like went there. So in that situation, I think it's okay to ask questions, because I had to ask a question like, hey, what's going on? You know, they said that this happened, and we kind of needed to work through that. And then I was able to get that answer. After I got off the phone and got that answer, then it still followed up with that conversation with my daughter. So show me where your private parts are, right? Did they touch you there, or show me where they touched you? So what happens, again, like if someone were to touch your private areas? So you did the right thing telling mommy that someone touched your body. So even though it was something totally different than what we expected. So in those situations, I think it's okay to like ask a simple question.
Can people reach out to you for like the investigation part?
I'm not an investigator. No, I'm just kidding.
But I mean, you know,
Yes, for Care House.
Yeah,
So
that's what I meant.
it's on a it's
Or
on
do
a
we need to have like a police report first to do that?
typically
In
is
that
on.
situation, if someone's like kind of curious
Oh, and that, yeah, can they call and ask a question?
and speak to somebody so their child can be interviewed.
Oh, if they are trying to set up an interview for themselves. So it's usually a referral that they would have to get. Yep, so they would have to have reported the incident to the police or CPS or something like that. Then they will get a referral to come to Care House for that. So they can't just call and just schedule their own interview.
But if you call CPS with that, that's a great question you asked, right? But you have to have faith that we're dealing with Child Protective Services and investigators who their job is to developmentally know each stage.
Yeah.
Right? So when you say they're 3, they're going to put on their 3-year-old developmental hat, and they're going to say, oh, I've got someone, let me check and get back with, you know what I mean? Like, the burden should not be on the parent or the parent, right? We have to lean on our community partners that know exactly what they're doing and that will guide us, because clearly we're activated, right? We're in Mama Bear, Papa Bear mode. Or
For sure.
Right?
Is CPS the first call, or is it the police? Like, what's the right steps?
Well, I would say if you deem something to be immediate danger, to call the police, and then you can follow up with a CPS report. But you can call CPS or centralized intake first and make that report to them first.
And if I might add, I really encourage you, if you have the contact inside the school district, have your teachers trained. Ask them to be trained. We are here for that, and we do the mandated report. We're doing it in Rochester schools and other districts. I'm not sure about Bloomfield. Bloomfield, I know that some of you have taken it online, but make sure that your staff is trained. Talk to your teachers, talk to your staff, and have them trained, because we can provide all those resources, all those guidelines, how to do it, when to do it, the format and everything, all the information they need to feel secure, to feel safe about reporting. Yeah.
So, like, how would we best advocate for that? Like, is that something we bring up at, like, PTA meeting?
I think that would be your person. No? Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it has to go straight to the top. I feel like when we're talking about keeping our kids safe, it has to be infiltrated from the top down, right? I mean, we can do cheeky things like this and go from the bottom up, but there's 16 people here. And I have faith that these 16 people are going to roll up their sleeves and get it done, right? But when it comes to how they value and how they train, I feel like it has to come from the top down. That's my personal opinion on how to navigate the system, because this is a really important subject. But I also have to, you also have to know that that's not my lane.
I'm a parent in the district. I'm the chair of the PTO Council, Health and Wellness Committee. I am not an administrator. I'm not a teacher. And I could certainly take this feedback and give it to the superintendent, and I'm happy to do that very willingly if we all think that that's a great idea. But really, superintendents are kind of in charge of all kinds of training, and sometimes there's just not enough hours. So you throw in COVID guidelines and mental health guidelines and flu vaccine guidelines and all these different things. Not to mention we actually learn here, right? So yeah, we can push it. I don't know if they have the capacity for it, but I could certainly say that it's something that parents here want for our staff to have. Right?
Yes,
And
for sure.
you could also help by pushing this recording around in your school community. Put this recording link in your school newsletter. Blow it up on your social media personal page. Blow it up in your PTO council page. Because if it can't come from the top down, we could sure as hell do our best from the bottom up.
It's probably more important that more parents do come to these things than teachers, because teachers can be predators too, unfortunately.
So can parents.
Yeah, there you go. And there's only 16 of us here, and how many parents live in this district, right?
Well, we have a recording. Thank you, Bloomfield Television.
Yes.
And also, we can come back.
Yep. Yep.
That's only the reported.
Exactly. Only the reported.
60% don't even report. Ever.
And something I would like to add, we are lucky here in Oakland County. We have very efficient staff in CPS. Law enforcement is very, very well connected and aware and sensitive about this. We work hand in hand with the law enforcement in our house, and we are lucky here because they really pay attention and they follow through the cases. It is a very nice county to live in, and I can feel that because we receive complaints from other counties, and it's not as efficient as we are here in Oakland County.
Okay, we can go to the next one. So lastly, kind of just wrapping up, like what to look out for, because sometimes parents will ask, like, well, how will I know, like, what if my kid didn't tell me? Are there some things that I can look out for that can kind of be some red flags or some cues to kind of let me know if they have been dealing with some type of trauma? So on the physical side, it can be like any like bumps or redness around like the genital areas, if they're having maybe frequent UTIs, if it's any type of unexplained like chronic headaches or chronic stomach aches, kind of those kind of things. Because when we're talking about trauma like lives like in our body. If we are not able to release it, it can come out in different ways. Okay, it can come out as like those chronic headaches or chronic stomach aches. Maybe you have gotten all the tests and blood work done, but it's showing that this kid is completely healthy. So now what? So now again, we have to take that trauma-informed approach. What has happened? Okay. It can be other behavioral things, like if all of a sudden they become withdrawn, or they have like a fear of being like close to someone, or fear of you touching them, they're flinching all the time. It can be even the too perfect behavior too, right? I think sometimes that can be glanced over. So if they are that kid that goes over and beyond to say yes to everything, and they are in every extracurricular activity, and you know they have awesome grades, outside looking in, like, wow, I have a great kid. But sometimes they may be overcompensating for something that has happened to them. Okay, so even looking out for something like that. Inappropriate sexualized behaviors, and again, based on that child's age and development. So if they are maybe saying different words or lingos or language that maybe they shouldn't know at their age, if they are doing different like movements or gestures that are sexualized that they shouldn't know at their age and development, then that should be maybe a red flag or a cue as to maybe something has happened, or they have been exposed to something that they should not have seen. And then other things can be like bedwetting. So if maybe they are well past their potty training stage, 7, 8, 9 years old, and all of a sudden they're like having accidents and starting to wet the bed again, or night terrors, or failing grades, or it's hard for them to sit in class and pay attention. Maybe they're having some issues with like self-harm or harming others, and this is something that's different and new, then that should be a red flag as to maybe something has happened to my child, and some things to look out for. Any questions about that?
So this would be a situation that you don't have the when or where. You're going off of these other cues
Mm-hmm.
So, do
So-
you make a report? Do child protection? What's the protocol on that?
So then if you're like seeing different things, so especially if it's like the physical side, like redness, bumps, that, that's straight to the doctor. We need to get this checked out. We need to talk to someone. If it's the other things, like maybe that rebellion or depression, anxiety, sometimes the route that a parent may take is like taking their child to therapy, and now it can come out in therapy if something has happened. And then if it comes out in therapy, then the report will need to be made because that therapist is a mandated reporter.
Pediatricians also, right?
Oh,
You
yes.
tell a pediatrician all these signs, and you're kind of
Mm-hmm.
wondering something might happen. If you tell the pediatrician that, does the pediatrician know?
Yes, they are mandated reporters, yeah.
But the child would need to tell the pediatrician who and where for that.
No, I'm wondering if like these signs, if you share these signs with your pediatrician.
Yeah. Yeah, that they should report it, especially if it's like, it's really easy to report like the physical things, the bruises and the things like that. It's easy to see that and report that. If it's the other stuff, it may take a little longer route if that child isn't outwardly saying, but you just have a gut feeling that something is off, this is different, they normally don't act like this. Then just taking them to the right people to be able to help them so it possibly can come out. Whatever the issue may be, it may not be sexual abuse, it may be like, a drastic change that has happened in their life or anything like that has triggered some of these. Okay. I think that is all that I have for this. Any last questions, comments, or concerns? Oh, yes. Yeah, can we push that up? Well, okay. I can capture your all email address. Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay, I can capture your all's email address, and I can.
I'll post it on the PTO Council page.
Okay. Okay.
It'll take a couple weeks to get this recorded and edited, but Bloomfield, again, they're so kind. They don't charge us for this. I'll blast it out, and with the blast, I'll put the links that were shown tonight.
Yes.
Fair enough.
Yep.
And I also, is it okay, ladies, if I took pictures of your slides?
Mm-hmm.
Can I post those as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can send you. I'll just send you I'll send it to you.
Oh, okay. Then you're going to work directly with Ms. Womack, and
Yes.
you're going to get a business card and reach out to her and tell her that you were
Yes.
here, and she will give you all kinds
Yes.
of love and attention and come to your private school, your public school, and hook you up.
Yes. Anything you need, we have tons of resources for you all. Yeah. So even down to like coloring pages where you can sit down with your kid and color, and just talk about this type of stuff. So yeah, anything you may need. Okay. If not anything, thank you all for showing up and being here tonight. Thank you so much.